والآن المدربة الدولية والمقيمة لدى مجلس الجودة في تعليم العالي يوكاك الدكتورة بهار تشيليك لتقوم بأرض باللغة الإنجليزية تحت عنوان وظيفة فريق التقييم ومسؤولياته ومراحل عملية التقييم الخارجي، فلتتفضل مشكورة.
Geliyor şu an. Geliyor. Türkiye'de geçer. Biraz bekleyin.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the IAA program. My name is Bahar Çelik, Dr. Bahar Çelik. I am the quality coordinator of the Kütahya Dumlupınar University in Turkey. And also, I am the external evaluator of the IOKAK, is head of the quality assurance system in Turkey. And also I am the member of IAA Education Committee, and we will give the education when you demand the accreditation from IAA. Today we will talk about the practice to external evaluation program. Because after this education you will be external evaluator, so we have to talk about the process, the external evaluation. What will you do when you go to the a university as an evaluator? What will you evaluate? Which process you have to follow? And how can you prepare an exit notice report? How can you do meeting with the university, and which situation you have to take hand in the report? We have to talk. But before the practical situation, we have to understand what is the accreditation. First, we will talk about the accreditation, quality assurance system and accreditation in the higher education system. And why accreditation? Why we need the accreditation? Yesterday, a lady said that Harvard didn't accredit from any agencies, but they are very well in the world and they are famous in the world. But then why we need the accreditation in Turkey or in Arabian country or in the other countries? And also, why accreditation necessary in higher education? In the first, the accreditation established for the private companies, for the product companies, and then accreditation developed, and the health institutions, health sector used the accreditation, and the other institutions, governance institutions use the accreditation, and in the end, the education, higher education also start to use the accreditation. Why we need? Why it's really necessary to use the accreditation program? And what is the internal quality assurance system, and how we assure or how we evaluate our internal process as internal evaluator for our university or faculty. And also, after these topics, we will talk about the acceptance and the application and acceptance process for the accreditation. So, in the end, the forming evaluation team, how we form the evaluation teams, and how we choose the team leader, evaluators from the evaluator repository, and what is their duties and responsibilities when they go to the evaluate department program in the university. The accreditation is the assurance system for any company, for a private company, for health sector, for education, in the higher education. But the education program accreditation is the process to ensure their competences and qualifications of students when they graduate. What does it mean? This is not only technical experiences. Of course, the technical experiences of students is very important, and we have to measure their qualification and their competences. But it does not only mean the technical experiences. It is only, we have to look at the ethical values and skills. What does it mean? For example, we give an education for physics students, and we have to point their competences and ethical values. We can give, for example, this point for their ethical values and for this point for their competences. For example, the physics students is very well in their education, their competences and their technical experience. But if their ethical values is not good, if their ethical values is very bad, so they can abuse their knowledge in the bad situation. For example, the physics students can prepare a bomb and can kill many people. Or the chemical students can use some virus and they can kill many people. Also, the Islamic students also. He could be very low in the competences, very well in the competences, but if he don't be aware in their department about their program, they can use their knowledge for very bad situations. So we have to measure the students also ethical values and the skills when they graduate or during their graduate for this situation.
Could you please go back to the first?
Yeah.
No, the first.
The first. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why accreditation is the necessary in the world? In these days, because of the information and technological development, the generations get very different side, you know. Our generations and the new generations, there are big differences between the generations. And it is not easy to communicate with them because of the differences the generation. What does it mean? There are many generations X, Y, Z, and the Alpha generations. X generations is okay, we can communicate with them. And Y generations born in untechnological time, but they grow up in the technological time. They know the both sides of the generation, so we can communicate with them. Not easy, but okay. But the Z generation is a very difficult generation. All of us are now face to face with this generation. They use the technology. They communicate via the technology, and we couldn't teach them easy the topics in the class, you know. So we have to change ourselves according to this generation. And also Alpha generation. Alpha generation have very strong motor skills. They can use, they can listen us, they can see us, they can reading us in the same times. They can use their very different skills in the same times. But our generation is not adapt to this situation. So we have to change our educational system according to this generations. Otherwise, we couldn't communicate with these generations, and we couldn't teach them anything or about technical experience or skill, ethical values and skills. And also, according to research, Alpha generation or Z generation only focus to a lesson or a meeting for 30 minutes, but it's getting low day by day. After a few years, they will focus only for maybe 10 10 minutes, yeah. So we have to change our topics of the lesson or the time of the lesson according to these generations to teach them some things. Otherwise, we couldn't do anything for them.
They will not be able to sit like us for 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
We are the X generation. We are treated as the X generation.
We are generally X generations, and there are some Y generations. Yes. It is not difficult for us, but it will be difficult for the other generations in the,
No,
in the future.
I said that you prepared everything for an pre-X generation.
Baby boomers, for baby boomers, yeah. And the other topics is the digitalization, globalization, and cooperation. What is the meaning of the digitalization? According to research, this is the graphic of the technology, and this is the human adaptability of the technology. As you see, year by year, the human adaptability of the technology getting low. Decreasing. So this is because of our education system. We have to change our education system for the human, increasing the human adaptability to the technology. How can we do this? We have to take a topic in our lessons, the digital competences. We have to change our lessons according to digitally. And also, we have to measure the students' complex problem solving. How can we measure? How can you evaluate the students' complex problem solving? Do you measure this? Do you examine? Or do you ask the question according to this topic? We have to measure this. And also the communication and the learning competences. How we evaluate the students' learning competences, how we measure it. So critical thinking. In the old education system, we didn't measure many topics for the digitally. And also, are we evaluate the agile leadership of the students or the goal focus? How can we measure their goal for during their education, and what are they thinking about their graduation or their career after their graduation?
What's the meaning of agile leadership?
Sorry?
Agile.
Agile leadership is because of the technology, the management gets different. How can I say? Gets difficult by day by. For example, you have to you graduated the imam, for example, for your program, and he will come to face to face with the Z and Alpha generation. He knows the Islam, and he tried to teach this Islam to students. But because of the technology, it is not easy to teach this to students, you know. We have many Islamic faculties in Turkey, but many students couldn't understand really what is the meaning of the Islamic education, what is the aim of the Islamic education. So you have to be really agile leader for this speedy exchanging, for students. And because of the technology, when there are many exchange, so you have to see it, and you have to manage it. You have to be a leader of this exchanging, And the goal focus, you have to know the students focusing goals, and also you have to integrate it many management topics together to be the agile leadership. And also you have to create information system to communicate with the other students. And the globalization and the cooperation. Nowadays, you know, there is no line between the countries because of the technology. Every student can communicate with the other students easily via mobility programs, via Instagram, via Facebook. So you have to manage all of these tools for the manage your education system. And the internalization, because of the internalization, it is very important the ranking of the university. What is the mean? You know, nowadays the universities rating by the, for example, Webometrics. Webometrics take your some criteria and rating your university according to your competences or your strong ways. And they also, Europe is a very important rating system in the world, and this system takes many points or criteria for your rating. Your citation number, your articles in which
Nobel holders.
And also green metric. It measures your environmental focuses or your environmental works in the world and rating your studies or works according to the other universities. So you have to take care of these ranking systems for to be strong in the world.
Do you have in Turkey?
Yeah, we have. How can I translate into English? Innovation and technological rating system we have, but it is national. We measure the universities according to their innovation and technological development.
And for humanities?
The government of the Turkey. It is not a specific committee. It is the mixed committee from the different governmental institutions in Turkey. And also, of course, we are carrying the Europe and Webometric system, and also now we are working to be adapted to green metric.
The question was, do you have any metrics for humanities specialization, for arts, Islamic studies, sociology, philosophy?
No, I don't know.
You mean ranking? For ranking?
Yeah, for ranking.
Some ranking of the universities and faculties overall throughout the country.
What is the name
It
of
is,
the...
I don't know the name, but it is announced every year by you.
By you?
Yes.
And
What is the name of it in Turkish? Do you know? I don't know.
We can see our place, which number.
You mean yenilikçilik ve girişimcilik indeksi? No.
Her sene bunlar ilan ediliyor YÖK tarafından, hangi üniversite, hangi fakülte, bölümler olarak, fakülteler olarak sıralamaları falan yapılıyor. Bunlar ilan ediliyor.
But they asking about the philosophy of the
Human
Islamic
sciences.
and human
Orada var.
resources.
Mesela ilahiyat fakültelerinden hangi sırada olduğunu, kaçıncı sırada
O giriş puanları.
bunların da yayınlarına vesaireye göre yapılıyor. Özellikle bu konuda da bu son akademik teşvik bilgileri bunda çok daha ön planda tutuluyor. Oradan o verileri orada kullanıyorlar. Şu anda var. Mesela senin fakültelerde de Dumlupınar İlahiyat kaçıncı sırada onları görebiliyor. Bölümlerini de görebiliyor.
Professor, yeah, said, but it is not specified only for human or society or the Islamic. And the other way of the why accreditation is decreasing and competitive public resources. We have human resources, we have some physical evidences or the some money resources for the education, but it's by year getting decreasing. So we have to change our structure according to the new world. We have to find some resources for ourselves because in the future we couldn't find any resources for education because of the governmental changing. And the increasing importance of social contribution. Nowadays in Turkey, every institution measures university's social contribution. What, for example, for Islamic faculty, what is your social contribution? When your student graduated, what will be what will give any social contribution to the public in the future? What is your aim about this topic? What will you plan about this topic? And it's also you have to measure. And why accreditation? I know that every faculty or every department are, of course, very well according to their department, but nobody knows you are really good or bad. So you have to show the others, the students, your external stakeholders, how you are strong, how you powerful, or how you really very good in your field. So you have to use the accreditation for the standards, because, for example, in Qatar there is a different education system. In Turkey there is different education system, or in Indonesia, in Malaysia, or the other countries. So how I know you are well or not in your field? How can you show me? So you have to use some accreditation measurement tools to show me. This is given the standards between the educational system, like a mobility system. For example, when I take English education, the world asking me or requesting me B1 level English, for example. How do you know what is the B1? How you measure it? How you decide the B1 level? So we are the accreditation. You can standardize your educational system, not your topics, only your standards or your education technique or method of your education. You have to use the accreditation. And also, when you take the accreditation, this is the kind of marketing strategy of the faculties. When you take the accreditation, you can say to your students, we accredited from this agency. So we are good at these topics, and we pass these topics from the accreditation agency, and you can be powerful about your field via accreditation. We are eyes of your stakeholders, external stakeholders.
And you can assist yourself.
Sorry?
You can assist yourself.
Yeah, of course. Mm-hmm. And also, why higher accreditation is really necessary for higher education institutions. You have many departments under your faculties, but as the Islamic faculties, you have only one mission or vision. Let me talk. This is your vision and mission as a faculty, and you have many departments. Your department have to push the faculty according to their vision and mission. Accreditation provides the coming together all faculties under this vision and mission. For example, in Turkey, there are many departments under the faculty. They give some education to their students, but they have to care about the faculty's vision and mission to become strong or powerful in their field. So that the accreditation is necessary for the higher education, because accreditation shows the universities the road of their goals. They have to plan their goals, and they have to
make sure that they are on the right track.
Yeah, that's right. And these are the quality agencies in the world. As you know, this is the first agency, and the other years there established many agencies in the world. So this shows us how is the important the accreditation in the world.
First one in America.
First one in here, yeah. And then ENQA. ENQA now is very famous in Turkey, and also our YOKAK start to be adopt the ENQA accreditation system. And also Africana and CONCADE and the other accredited agency in the world.
Scandinavia, do they have one? Because
Sorry?
Scandinavia, Do they have one?
Every region start to try to establish their quality assurance agency. For example, now we, as a Turkey, we try to adapt to ENQA system. And when we adapt to ENQA system...
Hocam İskandinav ülkelerinde de var mı diye soruyor.
No, I don't know. I don't know.
In Europe, I think together with the Scandinavian countries.
Because they are number one in teaching.
Scandinavians, but maybe in quality system, Europe is centers, Switzerland.
That's why I'm asking.
Now our YOCAP try to adapt to ENQA for to denklik equivalence, to their educational system. After the ENQA, adapting to ENQA, we don't have to use the other exam system. Our students directly can use their certificate in the Europe when we adapt the ENQA system. So internal quality assurance shows the faculties or shows the universities their goals and to reach their goals step by step. In the first, what is the purpose of the institution, or what is the purpose of the faculty, Islamic faculty? If your purpose of the of your faculty is planetary, so you have to show us under procedures. For example, for the planetary, you are need some human resources for planetary, right? And you need the planning the act for planting the tree, and you have some support services. So you have to show us under the accreditation us. For example, you have to first you have to do planning your act plan. What is your goals? Your goals is graduate some students from your faculty with blah blah competences, with blah blah ethical values or ethical skills, for example. You have to show us your planning act, and then you have to arrange your support and human resources for the doing your plan act. Do you have enough personnel, have staff? Do you have enough the supporting services? For example, class, project formation, or the other things that you need. And also, do you write your goals to graduate your students according to these plans? If you can do so, you can mention your proposal, the proposal of the institution via the accreditation. And how does the institution reach its mission, the purpose? You have to, you have to write all your procedures. For example, I will use these human resources, I will use this support services, and I will use these techniques for education, and I will graduate my student. You have to show us. And also, in the third, how does the institution make sure if it accomplishes the purposes? For example, if you don't have any quality processes, this is not necessary under the quality assurance. You have to determine. You have to define your steps during your education, and also after the graduate the students. It is not enough only for during the education. You also show us after the graduation, because we don't know really students have enough competences after the graduation. You have to show. And the fourth one, and the very, very important one, is how does the institution plan to improve the future processes. For example, you graduate a student and you see some negative topics, or you talk with your students and the students say, I need also this topic. When I graduated, I see that I'm not enough for to be imam, for example, for to be mufti, for to be the others, for example. So when you learn this, how can you improve this your side? You have to make a PUCO cycle, a PCDA cycle. When you, after your act, you have to evaluate your system, and you include your feedback to your plan. If you couldn't this, so you will be in the entropy after a few years. Your educational system die after a few years if you couldn't this cycle. Yeah. So accreditation also provide this PCDA cycle to your institution. And the quality assurance system, how can you establish the quality assurance system in your university? You need 3 steps in the university. In the first, you have to evaluate yourself, your faculty, according to your monitoring, your evaluation, internal evaluation, and the some improvement system. How can you improve yourself? You have to use the quality assurance system via the PCDA cycle. First, you have to plan your education, and according to your plan or your goals, you have to prepare or design your curriculum. When you prepare the curriculum, so you have to practice, you have to give the education to the students, and then you have to evaluate your educational system during your education and after your education, after the graduation of the students. When you evaluate yourself, and when you believing that we are enough in this educational system, so you need the external assurance. Why? Because, for example, in your university, you know that you are very well, but because of your including in the education system, you couldn't see the negative topics because of the blind point. So the external evaluator, when external evaluator came to your university, they can see easily your negative sides, negative space, and they can easily report yourself to these negative sides. You can benchmark educational system from the other universities or faculties. You can audit your educational system with the external evaluation and also assessment. You can demand the assessment, external assessment from the any agency, quality agency or the other faculty. And then when you pass the external evaluation system, so you need the accreditation. So you can demand an accreditation from any agency, and you can accreditate yourself if you are ready for the accreditation. But first you have to finish these 2 steps before the accreditation. And so after the 3 steps, after the internal and external evaluation, you have to applicate and take acceptance from the quality agency. Who can apply for your faculty? I'm only talking about your faculty. The Islamic Sciences and Equivalent Educational Programs can applicant the EIA quality agency, for example. So before the application, you have to graduate before your demand, before your request from the agency. Why? Because in PCDA cycle, there are 2 steps for the evaluation. The one step is during the education, and in every year you have to evaluate your students according to your educational system. And also every 4-year cycle, you have to evaluate your educational system, and then under graduation, you have to take feedback from your graduate students for improving your educational system. So that when the IAA came to your university for evaluation, so you have to show us your graduation feedback. You have to take from the feedback from them to show us your educational evidences. You asked in the morning which kind of evidences. This is a kind of evidences. The taking feedback from graduate students is your very important evidences for your educational system.
So we need for any program at least 6-7 years to be accredited.
Yeah, of course. The quality, normally the quality assurance system is for a product. In product company, you can see at moment when you produce the product. Yeah, you produce and you doing the quality, you doing the check, the quality check, and you send the product. But for human, you couldn't do this in 4 years or in 1 year. You maybe after 20 years you will take some feedback from your students. This is very long time, very long cycle, and continuously you have to check your educational system via the your graduate students.
But is there a clear question? A program that starts now, this year, what is the minimum number of years that you accept to evaluate it as external evaluator?
When you graduate your students,
Yes.
we can evaluate yourself.
So,
But
but there is no feedback from.
yeah, but you don't have to miss. This is the step of the accreditation. The first step, when you graduate the students, we will come to your faculty and accreditate yourself via your evidences. And then, after 5 years, if we believe that yes, you are really good, we will give the accreditation yourself. And after 5 years, we will come again for mid-evaluation to your faculty. We will see you still take the feedback from your students or not. If you didn't know or didn't take any feedback from your students, or if you didn't improve yourself via the feedback, so we take back your accreditation certificate. Or if you see some not deficient